Hi guys! So, I finally watched Erased after being told to watch it for the past 5 years. Last week, my sisters and I were watching random stuff outside and they played Erased for me and I ended up watching it all in one night. I originally wasn't planning to make a video on it, but I thought it would be really fun to kind of go through my thoughts throughout watching it and stuff like that and talk about my mental sus list throughout the show. So if you don't know what Erased is basically a 12-episode anime. Basically, it's about this guy who has the ability to go back in time to prevent tragedies from happening. And the main story is basically about the main guy, Satoru, saving his childhood classmate from being killed. That's basically the story. And yeah, so if you haven't watched it, I really recommend to go check it out first and then coming back to this video because we are going to be creating a sus list. Made it my mission as I was watching to figure out who is the killer. So the first clue that we learn about the main killer is when Satoru and his mom are at the supermarket and they're going to the car in the parking lot. Revival gets triggered and he goes back a few minutes, so Satoru also looks around, tries to find what the heck is wrong so he can prevent whatever is supposed to happen from happening. Then he asks his mom for help and his mom does kind of suss out this man that is holding hands with this little girl. This is the first clue. He is like an adult at this time and he has black hair. Later on, the mom mentions to Satoru, hey, you might have actually prevented a kidnapping in the parking lot. We also learn more about Satoru's past during this time, so we learned that 2 of his classmates were abducted and killed, and he believes that his friend was framed. The mom later reflects on the situation in the parking lot, for sure a planned abduction. She feels like she knows this man from the past. She does recognize his eyes, then she realizes who the real serial killer is, and that man that she saw in the parking lot is the same person from the past. And she confirms that the killer is not Yuki. She's at home and stuff. The killer comes and kills her, and then her little internal monologue, she's like, bro,
my son was right!
Because she was doing her little own investigating on who the killer is from the past and that man in the parking lot, her suspicions were right, but she died. When Satoru came home, he passes by the killer. Again, we see that he has red eyes, black hair. The police were called right away and Satoru became the main suspect. But then before anything major happens, like getting caught, he gets thrown 18 years back in time through revival, and his mission is to save his mom by probably preventing his classmates from being killed. From this episode, we learn that the killer is in the year 2006. He is an adult, most likely male, has black hair, red eyes. The mother knew him from a past incident. During this time, we also have no suspects because we don't really know any of the characters yet. So in episode 2, Satoru enters class and the first character that is introduced is the teacher. And right away, when I saw the teacher, I was like, he's sus, he's sus. He has black hair, he looks sus. He's the killer. And then Joy was kind of gaslighting me. She was like, we didn't see the hair color of the killer, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, are you sure? And I was starting to second guess myself. And then another person that I thought was really sus was Kenya, because I thought that he paid way too much attention to Satoru. And he also seemed really smart. He tended to bring a lot of peace to the group. And I felt like it could have been a cover up, oh, he's low-key bad and he has the backs of his classmates because he's so nice or whatever and smart. But what if he's bad? You might also be thinking why would you suss out a kid? The killer's obviously an adult. My logic was oh, what if he was a kid in 1988 but was an adult in 2006, right? That's a possible outcome. I really thought that could have been an option. That's why I sussed out a bunch of kids from the show. He also instantly felt sus about Satoru, and I kind of had a side theory that what if Kenya was time traveling as well, because he seemed really, really mature for his age, and everyone thought Satoru felt mature and stuff like that. And lastly, my last person on my sus list during this episode was Kaio's mom. We didn't really see her, but she was just mentioned because she was beating Kaio and stuff like that. But I wasn't sure entirely because it seemed too obvious, but I put her on the list anyways during that time. But again, with the whole hair color thing, even though I wrote down the killer has black hair and I did suss out Kenya who has blonde hair, I just thought what if hair dye, people can change their appearance in the future to hide their past. So suspects right now is the teacher, Kenya, and Kaio's mom. So in episode 3, we learned that Hiromi was one of the victims and Kaio was killed before her 11th birthday. A new person on my sus list is Hamada. He's the sporty one in the class. So basically he races Satoru and he goes off on Satoru, who like gets really mad because Satoru let him win in the skating race. I put him on the sus list there because, you know, sometimes in like these types of stories, it's always like the villain origin story is sometimes like so dumb. Like little things like this can trigger people so bad. So like I put him on the list because, you know, what if like he ends up killing all these kids because Satoru let him win a race, you know? So I put more notes for the teacher. He just looks really creepy. He has some weird creepy shots every now and then. I feel like if you're not thinking about it too hard, obviously it's a thriller, so you could think that they just made the teacher feel kind of weird for like thrill effect. But I was already like, he's sus. He got black hair and he's sus. Satoru also describes him as having a sharp observing eye. That's a really important trait for a teacher, just to know like stuff that is going on. But I just feel like he's really sus. We finally meet Kaio's mother and we see her collecting Kaio from the shed after beating her. And Kaio's mom also has blonde hair and red eyes. The red eyes again. And we also see Kaio's mom's boyfriend. He is present during the abuse, and we also see that he has like red eyes and blonde hair and stuff like that. So we see Satoru talk to the teacher about how Kaio's mom abuses her. I guess something to kind of cancel out or to defend the teacher is that the teacher knows that Kaio's mom abuses her and contacted the child consultation center on the case, but he admits that they're not really doing much about it because the mother kind of avoids them and stuff like that. So I mean, at least he's kind of doing something at this point. And we also have a new person on the list, Misato, because she planted class lunch money in Kaio's bag so the class could hate her, and apparently the bullying from Misato against Kaio started long before that incident. So again, it could be like these little instances that can trigger some people to like literally become insane. And I put another point for Kenya. He seems more sus after he is seen talking to the teacher after class. And new people on the sus list is Kaio's mom's boyfriend and Hamada and Misato. So episode 4. So we see that Satoru thinks that all he has to do is keep Kaio alive from March 1st to 2nd, because the 2nd he found out is her birthday, to save her. So after Satoru asks his friends to join him and Kaio at the science center, Kenya instantly says that he has plans. I was kind of sus here because I was like, okay, Kenya, like you got plans. What are your plans, huh? Like what were you talking to the teacher about the other day, huh? Are those plans talking to the teacher related? Again, we see the teacher and Kenya speak privately, so I thought that was really sus. At this point, I was thinking maybe Kenya and the teacher are plotting together. I don't know. Like, so when Satoru asked Kaio's mom for permission to go to science center, she has brown eyes. So that's when I kind of realized that the red eye thing can just be symbolic, maybe like bloodlust or something. And I kind of crossed out the red eye thing from the characteristics of the killer. So Satoru believes that Kaio was targeted because Kaio was always alone at the park, and she made sure that she was never alone. In this episode, we learned that Satoru changed history because Kaio wasn't alone on March 1st, which was the day that she died, and she didn't die. So on March 2nd, Satoru's friends surprised him and Kaio, and Kenya reveals that he got help from the teacher planet, and that's why they were speaking privately together. But the next day and after that, Kaio didn't show up at school. So episode 5. So we learned that adult male tracks were found next to the shed. This could potentially say that the killer is an adult male in 1988, but my logic during this point was saying, what if it was a kid that was wearing adult size boots to frame an adult of abducting or killing Kaio? So Kaio's mom and boyfriend are hiding inside the house next to Kaio's body. We also see that Kaio's mom was the prime suspect, but she was proven innocent. Satoru was then yeeted back to present day 2006, and he realizes that the only thing that changed was the date that Kaio was killed. In present day, we see the killer again, and he has some sort of political power, is still actively killing present day. The killer also targeted Irie and schemed to frame Satoru, but Irie survived. But I am actually going to take Kaio's mom off of the list because she was basically kind of proven innocent, that she wasn't killer by the police and stuff like that. Episode 6. Satoru contacts his mother's ex-coworker, chat about the night that Kaio died in the perspective of what the police think that happened. So Kaio's mom and her boyfriend beat her and locked her up in the shed. The suspect Yuki took Kaio's body from the shed and took pictures of her, sprayed her with water, and froze her at his work's freezer. killer. Kaio's mom noticed that she was gone and called Satoru's mom if she knew where Kaio was, but obviously she didn't. Before dawn, Kaio's body was put back into the shed. Kaio's mom and boyfriend found her body and they hid it just so they won't be suspected as the killers and stuff like that. So the story crosses off Kaio's mom officially again and her boyfriend. Because this wasn't prevented, Hiromi also died and theorized that Hiromi was murdered because the killer mistook him as a girl, and they only suspected people that didn't know Hiromi was a boy. But the killer knew Hiromi was a boy and killed him to keep himself off of the list of suspects. So the killer must have known Hiromi personally. And yeah, so we see the killer again towards the end of the episode and we see his like face shape and I'm like, bro, this man is still hella sus. So episode 7. So we see Kenya and he talks to Satoru and he admits that he has changed in a good way. He's like a superhero to him and he feels inspired to be one too. Kenya and Satoru both team up to save Kaio. And throughout this episode, when Satoru was doing a bunch of stuff to prevent Yuki to be on the sus list that night, if anything happens, as well as prepping to save Kaio, he tries to push Kaio's mom down the stairs out of anger, I believe. Kenya actually decides to stop him. So to me, all of those acts proves to me that he's not on the sus list anymore, so I decided to take him off. He could have been lying about all of that, but at this point I really feel like he was genuine after the birthday and after all this stuff. So Kenya and Satoru both hide Kaio in the storage bus after the birthday party. So the teacher questions where Kaio is when he usually brushes it off, since he knows that she's usually late when her mother beats her. He also seems to know that Satoru knows something just by like the camera angles and stuff like that and the way he stares. That scene was funny to me because it's like the teacher usually just brushes it off, but he just seemed really genuinely confused, like he himself didn't actually know where she was at. So in episode 8, during one of the nights Kaio stayed in the overnight bus, an adult man came into the bus, dropped stuff off, and killed the box in anger. I really believe that this was the killer, and this kind of crosses Hamada off of the list because 1988 the killer was an adult male. So the teacher is the only one on the sus list at this point. So the teacher and Satoru talk about Kaio being missing. The teacher hints that he doesn't want to contact the police because he doesn't want to cause Satoru any trouble for hiding her because he knows that he has Kaio. But he called Child Protective Service to investigate. He genuinely wanted to help at this point. But we also see another shot of the teacher. Still don't trust him, but like I guess he's trying to help. But I still don't trust him because he's the only one on this list and I had like no idea who else it could be at this point. So episode 9, after Satoru and the gang decide to let Kaio stay at Satoru's house after hearing about the little break-in that happened during that night. Satoru's mom brings Kaio back to her place next day. So the teacher, CPS arrive and they also brought Kaio's mom and they have like this whole dramatic scene and they take away Kaio and she's put in the grandmother's care and custody and Kaio ends up moving away. So because of this, Kaio actually was saved, but the whole thing wasn't over because so he still got work to do to save the other kid and the girl from the other school and to potentially find out who the heck the killer is. So the teacher basically thanks Satoru for saving Kaio and he praises him and all of that stuff. Satoru sees that Yashiro is like, or the teacher is like a father figure to him. At this point I was like, I don't know if he's the killer because he just seems so close to Satoru, but like at the same time this would be such a like a good plan, you know? I was like not really sure. I was like, did I miss any other characters that could have been potentially on the sus list because like he was like the last one and the only one and we're only on episode 9 at this point. So the next day teacher and Satoru talk to each other and he asks where Satoru hid Kaio for the past few days and Satoru's like, I hid her at the bus hideout, and Yashiro says a place only kidnappers would think to go. Ha ha ha. So Satoru investigates another victim that goes to a different school. He follows her to get familiar with her route and he realizes that after she got out of cram school, that would be like the perfect time for someone to abduct her because she's all alone in like some random place. But then he runs into his mom and she asks him to help her with carry groceries. But then suddenly the teacher appears and gives him a ride home. So at this point I was like, bro, this was too convenient, you know, because first off, Satoru already said that this would be the perfect time for someone to abduct her. Randomly, the teacher just happened to be there at the perfect time to abduct the girl. So I was like, And we also learned more things about the teacher when they're in the drive in the car. The teacher is single, he had a failed marriage, and he carries candy in the glove box. And when Satoru opened up the glove box, the way the teacher just reacted was too sus. He said that like it's just the way he satisfies his cravings because of his smoking addiction. I don't know, that was too sus. Like I didn't buy it. So I think they tried to make us think that this was just another way that the show was trying to make us thrilled or like feel uneasy. I felt like this was all too convenient. So then Kenya continues with helping Satoru with case 2. They make sure Hiromi is never alone. They also went back to the bus hideout to see like any more clues, I think. And they notice there are adult footprints leading to the bus, and they don't have any shoe markings because they were like wrapped up in something to hide the shoe markings. And they also notice that the bus is empty and everything inside of it is gone. So I just thought, how convenient. The stuff in the bus hideout is gone after Satoru told the teacher that they hid Kaio in the bus. They know of the bus, and the teacher was probably like, oh my god, they're gonna go back in there, so I should like take out everything, you know? I just had like a lot of more lists towards the teacher. I couldn't suss out any of the other characters, and I felt like it was too late into the story for any new characters to come in. So episode 10, this is basically the last episode of the whole mission and stuff like that. So the gang becomes friends with Aya, and it leaves Misato alone. This makes her a potential new target, and Satoru also notices that Misato tends to be alone, so he follows her to the hockey match that the teacher and a bunch of the girls are at. So Satoru follows her to the washroom, and she waits for her to come out, but she takes way too long. And as he's waiting, he sees the teacher come out from the back door. And the teacher says that he passed by Misato on his way up there. Satoru sees Yuki's dad's truck leaving, and then Satoru asks the teacher to drive him and follow him. And at this point, I was like, oh my gosh, is it Yuki's dad? Like, I don't know. Like, I was still on edge if it was the teacher. I was thinking maybe the show, they made it way too obvious that it was the teacher and it's some random character that like was barely mentioned in the show. I was also really confused because it was like Misato clearly went into the washroom. It would be odd if Satoru didn't realize she left. When they were in the car, Satoru had a hard time putting in his seatbelt, and I thought that was odd because it was like he didn't have a problem with putting his seatbelt on when she gave him a ride the other day. So, but then yeah, as they followed the truck, the teacher ended up revealing himself as the killer and proceeded to attempt to kill Satoru by locking him in the car and drowning him in the pond. So yeah, that was basically it. That's how I figured it out and my thoughts towards it, who I sussed out, why I sussed them, and why I removed them off of my sus list. So yeah, and then really quickly, little overview of episode 11 and 12. With the rest of the show, since it was basically a falling action, the rest kind of fell into place. I knew that he was going to survive the attempted murder because of the iconic scene with Kaya holding the baby. I knew that they were going to meet again, so I guess like that part was kind of like bold for me, I guess. I personally didn't think it was a big deal that she ended up with someone else other than Satoru. Although like Satoru had feelings for her, I think he would be happier knowing that she decided to keep living her life instead of waiting for him for 15 years to wake up. He's too nice, you know, he's too nice, but I think that's something that he would think as his character. Although I do think it would be like super satisfying and super cute if she did wait, because like I feel like I personally would have waited. I would have been like, oh my god, this guy saved my life, like I'm gonna wait for him, I don't care, I'm gonna wait for him. I think for the story's sake and for his motives and stuff like that, I think symbolic way of saying that she decided to keep moving on and keep living or wasting like a second of her life and stuff like that. I also think it really showed that his intent was purely to save her and to save his classmates than just to be like, oh, we can potentially like end up together in the future. That's the way I see it personally. But I still do really think it was funny that she ended up with Hiromi. Out of all characters in the show, I would have expected that she met someone in her new town or something, but like out of everyone it was him. Like, okay. I also thought that Yashiro, or the teacher, was super creepy, devoting his life to the fact that Satoru like filled the hole in his heart, and he proceeded to watch him for like the next 15 years until he woke up just to kill him because it gave him a thrill in his life. And also I didn't really think that Airi and Satoru would meet again because he didn't get the pizza job, and I just thought it was like a sacrifice, I guess you could say, another sacrifice that he had to do to go back in time to make things right, I guess you could say, to change his decision. I just thought that it was just a consequence of messing with the past. You don't always get the same ending, I guess you could say. But I'm really glad that he ended up meeting her again at the end, because I think it was kind of like tying in with the whole red string of fate thing, how like no matter what timeline or life he ended up in, it seems like they were fated to meet each other, and I thought that was really cute. That was me showing you guys how I figured out all the clues that I gathered and figured out that the teacher was the killer before he said that he was the killer. I personally really thought that this show was amazing. It's super fast to watch. I literally just watched it in a night. I mean, if you've already watched it, this is your sign to rewatch it. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and it is currently 1 a.m. I'm filming this. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you want to see another video of me talking about anime that I reviewed, here are some. I talked about The Great Pretender Season 2 with Berna. It's kind of like a podcast type thing, and as well as Banana Fish. Yeah, I'll link it down below if you guys want to watch it. But yeah, that's all for today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!